Today, the relationship between the United States and Iran is defined by extreme hostility. It is a daily reality of carrier strike groups, massive economic sanctions, and regional proxy militias exchanging fire across the Middle East. But if you look at Tehran in the 1950s, the country tells a completely different story. Women walked university campuses in Western clothing, the government held democratic elections, and the nation was rapidly modernizing. The catalyst that destroyed this progress was geography. Iran sat on massive oil reserves, and Great Britain held a total monopoly over extracting it through the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. This chart shows the raw scale of that financial exploitation between 1914 and 1950. The company paid nearly £91 million in corporate taxes directly to the British government. In those exact same years, the Iranian government received just £35 million in total revenue. This immense resource theft made true Iranian sovereignty impossible. They were the owners of the world's most valuable resource, yet they had no control over its wealth, setting the stage for their first major push for independence. In 1951, Iranian voters elected a fiercely nationalist leader named Mohammad Mossadegh. His very first order of business was to nationalize the oil industry and propose a 50-50 profit split with Britain. The British government immediately panicked. They rejected the compromise, froze Iran's currency accounts in British banks, and established a naval blockade in the Persian Gulf to prevent Iranian oil from hitting the world market. When Britain asked the U.S. for help, President Truman refused. But 2 years later, under Dwight Eisenhower, Britain changed their strategy. They stopped talking about oil and started claiming that Mossadegh was steering Iran toward communism to bait Cold War fears. The U.S. bought the narrative. In 1953, the CIA and MI6 executed Operation Ajax. Intelligence officers flooded Tehran with cash, bribing newspaper editors to print anti-government propaganda, recruiting street thugs to create violence, and ultimately overthrowing the democratic government. This was the first falling domino. By dismantling a nascent democracy to secure a resource monopoly, the West broke the very system that might have integrated Iran into the global order, choosing immediate control over long-term stability. With Mossadegh imprisoned, the West installed a monarch they could control, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the Shah of Iran. He happily purchased American weapons, opened the doors to Western companies, and acted as a reliable geopolitical ally. The Shah pushed aggressive economic modernization, but he paired it with extreme political brutality. While he lived in massive luxury, he used violence to silence anyone who questioned his rule. He established a secret police force known as Savak. Trained directly by the CIA, this unit imprisoned, tortured, and executed thousands of Iranian dissidents over the next 25 years. Replacing a popular democracy with a CIA-trained autocrat made every arrest and execution feel like an American decision. To the Iranian public, Washington had become the literal sponsor of their domestic oppression. That resentment finally erupted in 1979. Millions of Iranians poured into the streets, forcing the Shah to flee the country. In his place, Ayatollah Khomeini returned from exile and established a strictly anti-Western theocracy. Shortly after the revolution, the U.S. allowed the exiled Shah to enter America for cancer treatment. To Iranians, this looked exactly like the buildup to 1953. They assumed the CIA was using the medical trip as cover to plot another coup. To prevent that, Iranian students stormed the U.S. embassy in Tehran. They viewed the building as a CIA command post, and they took 52 Americans hostage, holding them in captivity for 444 days. The hostage crisis completely destroyed Jimmy Carter's presidency and publicly humiliated the U.S. military when a rescue attempt crashed in the desert. Diplomatic relations vanished overnight, replaced by a permanent, politically toxic grudge. Washington wanted retaliation. They found their opportunity when Saddam Hussein took power in neighboring Iraq and launched an 8-year war against Iran. The U.S. provided Saddam with satellite intelligence and dual-use technology to build advanced weapon systems. When Iraq began deploying chemical weapons against Iranian troops, the United States actively lobbied the UN to block any condemnation. Facing this assault, Iran realized it had no international protection. To survive, they developed an asymmetric military strategy, building out the axis of resistance. They began funding, training, and arming proxy militias across the Middle East to fight their enemies indirectly. The American attempt to punish Iran backfired entirely. It forced the regime to militarize its ideology and spread its influence aggressively beyond its own borders. To ensure a foreign power could never repeat the 1953 coup, Iran began developing a nuclear program, a capability designed to deter any future attempt at regime change. In 2015, the Obama administration managed to halt this progression by brokering the JCPOA, widely known as the Iran nuclear deal. Iran agreed to dismantle its nuclear infrastructure and submit to extreme international inspections in exchange for sanctions relief. The diplomatic victory was short-lived. In 2018, the Trump administration unilaterally withdrew from the agreement and slammed Iran with over 1,500 new sanctions, a strategy designed to crash the Iranian economy. Iran immediately retaliated. They discarded the deal's restrictions and began enriching uranium to near weapons-grade levels, placing the region right back on the edge of a conflict. Today, both nations operate inside perfectly sealed, mutually exclusive realities. The U.S. sees a rogue state that funds regional violence and races toward a nuclear bomb. Iran sees an imperial superpower that overthrew its democracy, backed its enemies with chemical weapons, and actively tries to starve its economy. But the people actually paying the price for this standoff do not sit in Washington or the religious offices of Tehran. Millions of ordinary Iranians are caught in a violent vice. They are beaten and killed in the streets by their own government for demanding basic human rights, while simultaneously being economically suffocated by American sanctions. Until one side makes the deliberate choice to absorb a strike without retaliating, this 70-year loop of justified aggression will continue to crush the people trapped inside it.